make the system work. Welcome everyone to the inaugural refurbished council meeting in these chambers. Can I ask that everybody remains in their seats? Nobody is to move. We are under COVID-19 restrictions and protocols. Councillors will not be required to stand, and as such, everybody will remain seated. Thank you, Councillor Scandrett. I will now, Councillor Scandrett, can you please ask the point of order?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's not offering me a microphone switch here.
Then that was why people were supposed to be here earlier.
Right. Okay, so I've got to do it down there. Okay, sorry, I thought you had to touch the screen. Mr. Mayor, you mentioned COVID regulations. Of course, you can go to the theatre now or to a funeral at 100% capacity. I'm going to call on you to show some lenience to all the people who are waiting outside who would like to come in and to bring, it's not funny, and to bring some extra chairs in. We could suspend the meeting for 5 minutes whilst you do that.
Thank you, Councillor
Would you
Scandrett.
rule on that, please?
That is not a point of order, that is a request, and I'll ask the General Manager, Acting General Manager to respond, because I am not in charge of the building. The Acting General Manager is, and the Acting General Manager is in charge of those who come into this meeting room. Mr. Acting General Manager.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, I've made it very clear that we are conducting this meeting in accordance with Council's current COVID-19 safety plan. So the number of people that are in here currently is what is allowed under that COVID safety plan. And as far as I'm concerned, this is a workplace, and I have primary responsibility for everybody that comes into that workplace, including the 8 councillors. So I'm not prepared to vary that COVID-19 safety plan. It is what it is.
Thank you, Mr. Paul.
Thank
there
you.
are a couple of dozen people standing cheek by jowl downstairs.
Thank you, Councillor Scandrett. Please respect the chair. The answer has been given. The answer is no.
No, to the community.
Thank you. I'll ask the acknowledgement of country to...
Thank you. My question that I've got is under the Code of Meeting Practice. I've had this done before and it's been acknowledged. There is no mute button allowed under the Code of Meeting Practice. And as per the 2 local members' statement, it mentions about the mute button and banishing to the waiting room. Do you have the authority under the Code of Meeting Practice to use the mute button?
Nothing to do with, yes, nothing to do with the agenda.
Well, it has, because you've used the mute button multiple times and it's illegal.
I would suggest that the Mayor has precedence.
I doubt so. No way
I
in the
have
world.
precedence.
This is the rules.
I have
need to follow.
precedence over the control of the meeting.
No, you don't. Under the Code of Meeting
Thank you,
Practice, you
Councillor.
stand.
Thank
Only
you. I am asking
you do
that.
not use the mute button.
Thank you, Councillor Turland. Now I will
That
ask
could be a procedural thing.
Councillor Scandrett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What Councillor Turland's saying, in fact, could be a procedural thing that we could vote on to get clarity on it.
Thank you, Councillor Scandrett. That is not necessary. Would you do welcome of country, please, Councillor Whipper?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, ladies and gentlemen, I'd just like to acknowledge the land that we're meeting on tonight. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of that land, the Gundungurra people, and to pay my respects to elders both past and present, and also to those emerging leaders. I'd also like to extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders that may be present here today.
Thank you, Councillor Whipper. I'll do the civic prayer. Almighty God, from whom comes every gift and every good and perfect gift, we give you thanks for the blessings you bestow upon us in this Shire. Grant to those who hold office in the Council the spirit of justice and truth, of wisdom and charity, that mindful of our responsibility, we may promote the welfare of your people and advance the common good. Amen. We don't have any apologies, so we go to declarations of interest. No declarations of interest. Then we go to the item number 6 of item 6.1, notice of intention to issue a suspension of order. And I'll introduce this. I'll be moving a recommendation from the chair. And may I say, it is a very sad
Mr.
day
Mayor,
for this
I
shire.
actually had my light.
No, you have your light on. I am still speaking. Thank you, Councillor Turlin.
Mine is to move the amendment.
Then you, please allow me to finish, and I will be moving a recommendation.
But mine
If you-
should have gone first. It should have been the motion.
Councillor
My light was
Turlin,
on.
the Mayor has precedence. I will be moving a recommendation. It is a very sad day that we find ourselves in the position of likely suspension. And it has taken a lot of time for this to be done. And as I say, I feel very sorry for the ratepayers of the Shire, very sorry for the staff, and very sorry for fellow councillors who, after many years of service, may find themselves in the position of suspension. And I don't believe any councillor who may not be standing at the next election would want to end their careers under a suspension notice. But in relation to that, we are here to show cause as to why we shouldn't be suspended. And earlier on today, I asked councillors to attend the discussion. It wasn't a meeting, it was a discussion point to try and come up with a common ground of a motion that we could put to the Minister to show that we do not necessarily need to be suspended. A notice now will go up on the screen, which I'll move from the chair, and I'll be looking for a seconder, Councillor Whipper.
I have an amendment.
So we'll wait until the motion is up on the screen. It is a 9-part motion, and it covers all the areas I feel that need to be discussed today as business of this motion. So, can't see the bottom, okay. Okay, so it is an 8-part, we revised the recommendation. And I will speak to it, and I note there is an amendment. You have the right to put the amendment, Councillor Turlin.
Thank you. Mr Mayor, well, my amendment was the motion because I had my light on. But anyway, the process has gone where it has. My amendment is that Council accepts the decision that Minister Hancock makes on the notice of intention to suspend the suspension order. As reported by Nathaniel Smith and Wendy Tuckerman and the Minister of Shelley Hancock direction. Council has failed the community on its public communication policy, on providing councillors and the community on major projects and project information, point 1. Point 2, items of consension are listed below. I'm just waiting for the typist. Sorry? Well, I can't read and give a copy. It is not.
Councillors?
Councillor Nelson?
Could we get a copy, councillor?
No, because I'm actually reading it out now. I'll wait till you type it. No, I'll wait till you type it. What you can do is move the mayoral minute sideways so we can actually read it. It's very hard to read from here.
Okay, so is that just point 2? Is there more to it, Councillor Turlin?
Yep. Council has failed the community on its public communications policy, on providing councillors and the community on major projects and information. Items listed below. Franklin Street sale. Mittagong swimming pool, $6 million, closed 4 years out of 5. Berrimah overpass. Failure to provide councillors and the community in a timely manner on the failure of this project. Station Street, upgrade. Failure to provide information to the community on the increased budget costs and information on this project. Royal Commission and the New South Wales Government bushfire inquiries. Failure to make the submissions on time, 5 months late, 3 pages in the submission. Asbestos on local roads, costing the community over $2 million. Civic Centre project, not providing real-time accurate costs on the budget and variations. Barrel Memorial Hall, no explanation on $500,000 more in the tender process selected by the Mayor using his casting vote. Excessive delays on development applications, propounding misleading files and statements made by staff. The Mayor using his casting vote on many items that are in the public interest. The Mayor in breach of the code of meeting practice on multiple occasions. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, you have opened yourself up for a code of conduct in relation to making allegations, I believe. Can that be expanded, that screen? In your third last dot point, where you make comment about staff, but that will be up to you if you wish to leave it there.
I'll leave it there. The facts are the facts. And then I'll start the debate if you wish.
Okay. Is there a seconder? Yeah, so you're seconding?
No, Mr Mayor, I'm going to make a procedural comment.
Then before you make a procedural comment, I'm after a seconder.
And I also need to make a declaration, Mr Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Halstead has seconded. And your declaration?
Well, two things, Mr Mayor. It's apparent that seeing Councillor Turland and I are named in the proposed mayoral minute, which was prepared before today.
No, a declaration of interest.
I will finish if I may, and that is that Councillor Turland and I are named there. Now, in my case, that clearly is a breach of meeting protocol for me to vote on something that has my interest in it.
Thank you, Councillor Turland. Councillor Scandrett.
Well, Mr Mayor, are you going to rule on this?
Yes, I am. There is no There is no point of order because the motion that has been put up is being put up.
Well, I would have
You are
thought,
not mentioned in it, councillor Scandrett.
well, Mr Mayor, it says quite clearly here in points 7 and 8 that
Then I would suggest you look at the screen, councillor
well, it's hard,
Scandrett,
it's hard to
and
see,
see
Mr Mayor.
that the motion that was has been put up
So the motion that was presented to councillors in the pre-meeting
has been withdrawn.
has been withdrawn, which was requesting councillor Scandrett to tender his resignation.
Yes, that has been
And councillor
withdrawn.
Toon to tender
Yes,
his resignation.
That's correct. We
but-
had a discussion which you left, and councillors came up with a agreed motion in that meeting.
But Mr Mayor, you issued a media release
Councillor Scandrett,
that
is-
again conflicts me.
No,
Because in that
council-
you said you called for dysfunctional councillors to resign and you've named myself and councillor Gare,
you will
councillor
find-
Toon.
I refer to and I won't keep debating this because there is no debate. There is a motion on the screen which I have moved, and there is a press release which was released which has not anything to do with the motion up on the screen. So I will speak to the recommendation, and that is, and I see the amendment, and the feeling from the councillors is that we don't want to be suspended. That the councillors who have given a huge amount of time and effort and energy to this community wish to see their term out as functioning councillors. As such, if you go to the bottom point, is that the minister will, if you go to point 5, the Mayor, Councillor Gare, Deputy Mayor Councillor Andrews, and one councillor nominated by council, and I'll nominate Councillor Whipper if he will be prepared to be that representative, request a meeting with the Minister to discuss the alternative options to the suspension of all councillors. Because although I hear what Councillor Turland has put forward, there are also many completed and very successful projects that this council has done in the last couple of years. 22, in fact, on time, on budget or under budget. So yes, you can always pull out something that should have happened, and I agree with you in some of those amendment comments, but a lot of that was out of our control, and we are not here to debate those points. The points to be debated is on the business paper. So I would like to make comment that the councillors, and if we go to point 3, that the majority of council adhere to the requirements of the performance improvement order, and I believe the vast majority of councillors have, since the POI was issued by the Minister. And we also now look that the Minister give us 1 more week's grace to meet with her face to face and to explain our reasoning and the behind the decision of this council, which I hope the motion will be carried in its entirety by all councillors, to allow us to continue to serve the community, and that the Minister, in her powers, if she feels that there is a need to take action against any councillor or councillors, that is her decision. So that is on point 8. The following this meeting with the Minister, take decisive actions against those councillor or councillors identified by the majority of democratically elected council. So that is the reasoning for the recommendation that has been put up, and I'd like to think that, as I say, the councillors look at wanting to serve this community to its final the finality, which will, of course, end on the 4th of September. Councillor Scandrett, you have the right to speak against, for the amendment if you wish.
Mr Mayor, initially I'm going to speak against the proposed mayoral minute, which I notice changed from the document that was handed out just after 2 o'clock today.
Then I ask Councillor Scandrett that you please refer to the motion and no other motion.
I was just putting that on the record, Mr Mayor. And I'm also putting on the record that this is a 5 minutes to midnight type situation. We had the opportunity to meet yesterday, or last Friday, indeed last week, to deal with this request by the Minister for a response. And here we are with a deadline on us, which is all about 5 o'clock today. 5 o'clock we've got to have this submission lodged in. It's very tight. Well, I'm seeing somebody shaking their head there, but as I understand it, would somebody like to correct me?
I'll ask clarification from the acting General Manager.
Through you, Mr Mayor, we have until close of business on the 10th of March.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. Councillor Scandrett.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The point being here that this process is indicative of a culture, in my opinion. A culture of bullying, a culture of poor service to our customers, the community. Only 14 of whom are here, including media today, because we're using outdated COVID-19 regs. I noticed downstairs in the foyer there were some 20 people standing shoulder to shoulder prior to this. But my point is that we fail to engage all the time with what's going on with the community. Councillor Turner's put up some very good points, and I'll deal with those when we get to that. But frankly, we must look in the mirror and say, have we been delivering on a wide range of things? Now, customer satisfaction, that.
Point of order, Councillor McLaughlin.
We've got items to deal with here today. This is nothing to do with the agenda, and I'd ask you to make a ruling on it.
I will make the ruling, as I've said, that the councillors debate the issue at hand as to why we should not be dismissed or dismissed. So I'll take your point, Councillor McLaughlin, and as long as Councillor Scandrett doesn't vary from the motion that is before us or the amendment, then he has the right to speak. But please do not vary off the motion points or the amendment points.
Mr Mayor, I noticed with this new technology that I've just lost 30 seconds of speak time. Sorry, 55 down to 15. 40 seconds of speak time because it doesn't suspend on a point of order. Could somebody advise why that doesn't happen?
You're losing more time, Councillor Scandrett.
Well, I've lost it all, Mr Mayor, if you're going to rule me out, but that was a filibustering attempt to gag me. Well, no, the screen here says I can't speak. It's in negative. Have a look at it.
You can,
Right.
you-
Well,
you've
okay,
got-
well, I
you've
believe
got-
I have 40 seconds to speak now. Thank you. Okay. Well,
Please follow the procedure. Councillor Scandrett, you are using up your valuable time.
I'm not, Mr Mayor. I have 40 seconds from when I recommence. Thank you. The point being here that this council has been criticised solidly now for some time, particularly this term, and particularly with the greatest respect under your leadership. Now, I know you took meeting training on that. We all took training. In fact, the outcomes of that training are in this document here. But I can't reveal these because it's confidential. There are 8 points in there of agreed outcomes. And, of course, they're not dissimilar to our own stated aims of how we conduct our meeting. It's at the front of today's business paper. Our values: integrity, trust and respect, responsibility and accountability, communication, teamwork, service quality.
Thank you. Time has expired. A speaker for the recommendation, Councillor Whipper.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I support the recommendation. I think it's a way forward. I think the majority of councillors here want to continue to serve this community. It's always been our ambition, my ambition, to do the best we can. We don't win favour from everybody in the community. That's obvious. But when I did put my hand up for council all those years ago, my ambition wasn't to bring this council into disrepute. It wasn't to claim victory for putting this council into suspension. It was to serve the best the community to the best of my ability to do so. I think it's important we stay on task today at this meeting and that we address the problems. I'm a little bit disappointed with a process where our state members go publicly on record without even talking to the councillors and putting a broad brush statement out there that this council is dysfunctional. I'm also disappointed in the Minister, who hasn't availed herself of an opportunity to meet with the councillors individually or collectively to get a sense of what we're feeling and what we're doing. We had a performance improvement order placed against us. We went through that. We ticked all the boxes. There was a mediation. There was one councillor who didn't, for whatever reason, attend that mediation. We cannot have...
Point of order, Councillor Scandrick.
As you know, I was actually physically unwell on that. No? Okay, thank you. As you know, Mr Mayor, because I made you aware, this is incorrect. I was ill on that day and in a physical state that could not attend a meeting. That is incorrect, Larry Whipper, and you know it.
Okay, I think the point is you didn't attend, but you have clarified it was through illness.
And it was said on radio this morning that, again, the same inference.
Thank you,
not
Councillor
correct.
Scandrick. Councillor Whipper.
I did say there was one councillor who didn't attend that mediation. I made no claims whatsoever. The fact of a mediation is that the mediation is inclusive, not exclusive. That's the only way a mediation is going to be achieved, a mediated outcome. I know that completely. Now, the Minister could have taken that on board and made sure that we did have a mediation where everybody was present. Recommendations went back from the consultant. I believe a message went loud and clear to that consultant. Now, either they weren't relayed back to the Minister or the Minister chose not to listen to those concerns put forward by councillors, and we find ourselves in this situation. So I think in terms of natural justice, Mr Mayor, apart from anything else, we need an opportunity to put our case directly to the Minister and make sure that she's informed when she makes that final decision. If her final decision is that we're all dysfunctional, then so be it. I'll challenge that. But clearly she states in her own correspondence that some councillors are causing dysfunction within council. I think that's very telling. I don't know why the Minister doesn't use her powers to cherry pick those or those councillors that are creating that dysfunction in the chamber. One thing we all need to do is understand we have differences of opinion, but it doesn't mean we have to be disrespectful in that process. We need to acknowledge the role of the chair, put personalities aside, and we need to respect that. That's how order's maintained in the chamber. That's how order's maintained in society. I support the recommendation, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Whipper. And just without entering into the debate, because I have spoken, there have been 20 COVID meetings by Zoom. I think it'd be one of the biggest in the state. A speaker for the amendment?
Yes. Oh, sorry. No,
The amendment? Councillor Turlin.
Yeah, I find it a statement made by you, Mr Mayor, that in your motion that we're supposed to meet with the Minister. That's not the case. It's a written response within 7 days. So that is not factual what you've said.
Councillor Turlin, in what response?
You said meeting personally with her. That is not the case. The Minister's note says in writing, not meet with her. That's what you said in your brief opening statement. Now I go back to the motion that was put forward by the Mayor and others. And if you look at what's been put forward, Mirrigang Street reconstruction, it took 20 years to get done in 2 stages. Kirkham Road reconstruction, and Wattle Street. Both are part of Station Street. And funnily enough now, it's removed now from the finance meeting papers. It's not part of Station Street. But the last 10 finance meetings, these projects have been in Station Street. Interesting, they've been removed. The Barra Rugby Club was a grant that they applied for. They got the money. What council? Council administered the building, but didn't apply for the money. They might have been part of the signature, but it was the rugby club that put it together. The skate park, again, a government grant. The repairs of Mittagong Pool, $6 million in a creek. Nobody can build anything in a creek. And we spent $6 million of public money in a creek. Madness. It's been closed for 4 out of 5 years. Is that wise, spending money in a creek? Nobody else can. And we go on to the number H. Failure to do the Royal Commission and New South Wales bushfire inquiries, 5 months late, 3 pages long. Is that protecting our community? No, I can't think so. So I find it extraordinary that we're in this situation, but we now have a mayoral statement naming myself and Councillor Scandrett, which I find extraordinary defamatory. Because, as you can see, in relation to Nathaniel Smith and Wendy Tuckerman, it goes on to say the excess use of the mute button, which doesn't comply with the Code of Meeting Practice, and putting people in the waiting room. And even the last week on the 24th, a failure to comply with the Code of Meeting Practice, not giving 3 days clear notice. When I brought it up, I was muted. When I brought up the issue about the Barra Memorial Hall, wanting to know why we're spending $500,000 more, I was put in the waiting room in closed council. It's public money. It needs to be addressed publicly all the way through, a bit like Station Street. The Berrimah Overpass, $5 million over budget. We failed, had to give back 4.6 million, only got 1 million back out of the 4.6.
Thank you, Councillor Turlin. Councillor McLaughlin.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I'll be speaking in support of the recommendation. Councillors and the community, we are here today to try and see if we can get an audience with the Minister to see this council go forward. And I think Councillor Whipper put that very well. This council, over a period, has gone through some rough times. I acknowledge that. And I remember being in this place when the OLG would come and sit in the back and watch the performance of this council. So we've been put on notice before, but never to this extent. And it's a very sad day. It's a very sad day when certain councillors want to call it on, want to bring it on, want to bring down the council. And I think that's disappointing. And as Councillor Whipper said, it's not democratic and it's not fair to the rest of us. Council's got to make some hard decisions along the way, and they won't always be popular. They won't please everyone all the time. I think this has been a good council. I think we can move forward. A lot of the arguments brought up by Councillor Turlin are right, but this is not the place to be discussing them today. If we say we're gone, what is the Minister? We're gone. We can't look at moving forward for the next 6 months. And that's disappointing. We put our hand up to support this community and represent this community. If an administrator comes in, the community is not represented. As Councillor Whipper said, I'm very disappointed as well with the local members, that the previous local members in Jai Rao and Ms. Gillard Prugowd, that never ever interfered in local council. They always supported us, as has Stephen Jones. So I find it extraordinary that they would listen to a minority, I believe, in this community to want to see us sacked. And I think that's a testimony to a couple of councillors that have worked very hard to try and bring that on. And I think that's an indictment and a really disappointing aspect of this council. Why you would want to do that. So what we're going forward with today is to ask if the Minister will meet with us and see a way forward where we can finish this term. because I think we deserve that. Procedural fairness determines that we should be able to see out this council. The next council will see new people coming on board. And that's a good thing, and that's fine, and that's the way it should be. Democracy should be able to go forward, not to be stymied like this. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, and I think you meant the word suspended as opposed to the word sacked. Somebody to speak in favour of the amendment? Councillor Halstead.
Yes, I'll be doing that at this stage of the game. I don't know which way I'm voting, which may seem odd to you, but there's a method in my madness. I need to comment on a number of things. I'm extremely concerned about the preconceived viewpoint of the Minister for Local Government. Really concerns me. That's been evidenced by comments made on TV, for example, and this remains my opinion and I won't be moved from that. Has the Minister been ill-informed? It appears that she's been relying upon statements made by others, maybe even the Mayor. I don't know that one for sure yet. Does the Minister have any regard for my long-standing reputation in the service of local government? Answer, no. Office of Local Government. You wouldn't be surprised in what I'm going to say here. I have little or no confidence in the Office of Local Government, which is renowned for offering councils minimal, if any, useful advice whilst pursuing the traditional public service role. It seems to encourage code of conduct complaints, which are both very costly and time-consuming. Mayor Gare, inability to chair council meetings. Was the Mayor given assistance in the art of chairing council meetings by the recently appointed experts? I don't know the answer to that. Maybe the Mayor knows. But I saw no evidence of it. The continuing practice of the Mayor to use the mute button is not assisted in the effective running of council meetings. Senior staff, the community must be made aware that the senior administration is charged with the responsibility of providing elected councillors with accurate information which complies with the provisions of the law. I'm not convinced that they have served the council well during the current term. Station Street upgrade, non-compliance with planning law. This remains a serious concern of mine. I don't know how many times I've put issues before the staff, maybe to yourself as well, Mayor. I think I've actually written you an email suggesting what the processes are or should be, and I've had no answer. And I'm really concerned about that, and ultimately I'll pursue that to the nth degree. I think this has been a problem that, quite frankly, has created a lot of concern in the community. There's no argument about that. Next heading, suspension of a council. It should be noted that the staff remain in position whilst the elected councillors are admonished and removed from office. It is rare indeed for the OLG to investigate staff of a council who may be the root cause of a council's demise. No specific reference, maybe. Appointment of an administrator. Should an administrator be appointed, he or she should call a public meeting to elicit concerns of the community regarding the processes of the administrative staff of this council. I don't wish to say any more at this stage.
Thank you, Councillor Halstead. You made a couple of points. In relation to Station Street, yes, you've spoken to me, and I have said on 2 occasions in open council that I would make sure that all compliance issues be dealt with that are legally binding to council. And yes, in relation to the chairing of meetings, this one's very easy. We're in the chamber. 20 council meetings with councillors from 300 k's away to 5 minutes away. And over a period of 17 months, and you and I know, Councillor Halstead, what went on in those meetings. I'll say no more because it's all on tape. But this makes it very easy to chair a meeting, as opposed to the way that the technical imperfections of Zoom. Last meeting was one of the worst we'd had, and that was interference, people dropping out, councillors getting frustrated, I'm getting frustrated. I lost vision 3 times on my screen. So it makes it very, very difficult, and that's when you need the cooperation of councillors and work together.
Point of order on your statement, if I may, about the mute button.
Station Street.
The mute button. You were using the mute button long before we went into COVID, and a notice motion went forward, and it's illegal under the Code of Meeting Practice. You were using the
Okay,
mute
thank
button
you.
for
I
2
take
years
that.
earlier.
I will ask the acting general manager to make comment on that, or Ms. Lidgard.
Look, the only comment I can make through you, Mr Mayor, is that the Code of Meeting Practice is very clear. When the Mayor rises or the Mayor speaks, all councillors speaking need to resume their seat or cease speaking. Now, in a Zoom environment, that means you cease speaking. If there's not compliance with that, in the council chamber, the Mayor would stand up. That's not very practical in Zoom. So, in terms of how that's being managed, I'll make no comment other than the Code of Meeting Practice is crystal clear. The Mayor has absolute precedence, and when the Mayor speaks, councillors cease to speak.
Just a question
so-
to the General Manager, if I
No,
may.
no.
A question in relation to his statements.
No,
I have a
there is a
question.
point, I'm ruling on the point of order.
Well, the point of order is the question is not correct. There's nothing in here about, you were using the mute button
Thank you, councillors.
before
Thank
we
you,
went into
Councillor
COVID. There's
Scandrett.
nothing in there about
Councillor
that.
Turlett.
You have the right.
Thank you, councillor Turlett.
Yeah, if I may, Mr Mayor, just to follow up from
We are
your
in
statement.
debate. We are in debate.
Yeah, well, you made a comment about Station Street. I'd like to follow up on what you said. It's pretty
Well, I answered it
straightforward.
to the best of my ability.
I'm saying you
We are
didn't.
not getting into a debate about stations.
I'd like to see that in writing, that's all. That's all I'm
Okay,
saying.
then- Well, it's on tape. It is on tape. Would somebody like to speak in favour of the motion, please? No other speakers? Councillor Andrews?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillor Whipper and others have spoken, yourself have spoken. I don't rise, but I'm speaking on behalf of the recommendation. I find this time, and as all of us I should imagine, quite distressing. It's come out of left, well, it probably hasn't come out of left field, but it's still disturbing that we've got to where we are today. There's many things I could argue with or disagree with Councillor Turlett in regard to what we've achieved and what we haven't achieved. It's not appropriate to do that here. We're trying to seek a meeting with the Minister, and I think that's the proper thing to do and what should be a unanimous decision, in my opinion. Points 5 to 8 are both fair and reasonable, and I emphasise fair. All we're asking for is 7 days to seek a meeting and gain permission for a meeting with the Minister. It shouldn't be a problem for her to grant that, and I hope she does. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, councillor Andrews. Speaker against the motion?
Well, I think I've already spoken against the motion, but I'll speak to my motion, my amendment if I can.
Yeah, you may, if that be the
If
case.
nobody else,
You have the right to speak.
okay. Can I have my amendment up there, please, so people can read what's been said? The Berrimah Overpass was $5 million over budget. It took us 5 months to be told in relation to the Berrimah Overpass. Extraordinary. It's in the records. The Mayor, when he became Mayor in September 18 and in February 19, mentioned that he knew 5 months earlier before he told councillors. Now, if that was true or not, I don't know, but it's been noted and it's on the record here in this chamber. The General Manager's contract was put together to us on the 18th, in December 18, but none of us knew about the Berrimah Overpass fail. It all sits on the head of the General Manager. Should have informed councillors a lot earlier if they knew in September it had failed and we hadn't been informed. The $6 million we spent on the Mittagong pool is extraordinary, and we will keep spending money in that pool forever and a day. And so I've been accused of closing a pool, and that would be the worst thing for the council. But it's been closed for 4 out of 5 years already. We spent $2.5 million on pools for a very short period of time in the year. I think it's 18 weeks. The breach of the law on playing a tape to councillors on a private phone call made to council staff is a breach of the Privacy Act. Clear. two barristers' opinion saying that it was a breach. You broke the privacy law. And again, OLG does nothing. The next step is to take it to the Supreme Court. The Royal Commission into the bushfire inquiries and the New South Wales inquiry. Until I asked the question to the General Manager at that time, and the statement was, I don't know what you're talking about. How does that protect our community? The Mayor at the time sat on with Wallandilly, the Joint Bushfire Management Committee. But we didn't know that those inquiries and submissions had to be done. How did we protect our community without putting a submission in on the things that we had accidentally failed in? Water supply power to Hilltop and Collervale. The power was turned off. Those sorts of things are what we should have been explaining to the Royal Commission so it doesn't happen just in our shire, all shires. Let alone the water tanks that were out Wingelow way. That was one thing that was a great thing, but it should have been there earlier as one of the submissions we should have made in relation to the bushfire inquiries. I look at all the projects here that we say that we've achieved, but unless you read my motion or amendment, you don't see the ones we've failed. It's extraordinary. As I said, Merrigan Street took 20 years.
Thank you, Councillor Turlin. Councillor Nelson.
Sorry.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, I'm speaking in favour of the motion. I believe that democracy is being killed today by the Minister for Local Government, supported by Wingecarribee Shire Council's local members, Wendy Tuckerman and Nathaniel Smith. The Minister's letter raises a number of issues. 3 months suspension. I believe that that will morph into the election day of the 4th of September. Numerous codes of conduct complaint and complaints about poor meeting practice. Been harassing and bullying behaviour towards staff. Concerns have been ongoing for some time, including warning letters, that the improved behaviour declined over subsequent meetings. The decline in civility impacted on the Mayor's chairing of the meetings. The Minister goes on to say the performance improvement order has been unsuccessful in affecting cultural change in behaviour of some councillors and in improved relations at council. The Minister has given council 7 days' notice in which represents in urgent circumstances. Normally the Minister would give council 14 days to respond to this, and this indicates to me, Mr Mayor, that the Minister has a predetermined position of suspension. I believe that the Minister has all the facts before her and she should, in accordance with the Local Government Act, take the appropriate action to suspend the councillors that have consistently breached the Code of Conduct, not the council as a whole. The council resolution can be forwarded to the Minister. I hope the Minister will meet with the Mayor, the Deputy Mayor and Councillor Whipper and let natural justice take place. I'd just like to point out too that in relation to Councillor Turlin's amendment, the Audit Risk and Improvement Committee considered the new Berrima bypass in detail and found no fault with the council. The residents at Mittagong, the residents of the Shire, want the Mittagong pool in a creek. The cost is unfortunate, but that is what the people want, and that is what council delivered. So thank you, Mr Mayor. I discount Councillor Turlin's amendment. I could go through them one by one and discount them, but I don't believe we have time to do that today. And I haven't been prepared for such an amendment as well, but I do point out those 2 points. And I hope that the rest of the council could pick up on those. So I think, Mr Mayor, I endorse the 8 points that you have, or the councillors who were at the briefing earlier considered and put together, and that should go forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Whipper speaking against the amendment. You have the right to speak. Well,
Okay,
hang on,
that's right,
before I
that's right,
get to you, councillor Scandrett, you were going to speak, so you would be speaking.
Hello?
No, if you wish to speak, because I believe you'll be speaking for the amendment or against the motion. No, you can't. The meeting protocol says for and against.
Could we have, just before I speak to it, the amendment up on the screen? The screen's very hard to see and the audience have no chance of seeing it. We used to have two screens in the chamber. I do think we've got to review that. Yes, well, if the audience can see that behind you, Mr. Mayor, I'd be very surprised. Well, there you go. There you go. And we should have a full chamber here. Okay, I will now speak. Look, here we are at 5 minutes to midnight on a council that has had continual problems with delivering services and respect to the community, dealing with bullying, not only of its staff, its community, but of some councillors. And of course, one of the problems we've had in all this time is getting proper grants. And Councillor Turland mentions the bushfire inquiry. I think we missed out on 15 to 20 million by not having a submission in there for getting water to our villages that were fire affected. The big problem with this council is that it really needs to have a grassroots shakeout. It needs a full reset. Section 438W of the Act provides for an inquiry into the council and into the organisation, and I continue to say that I think that is the way forward, a full reset of how we work, and it would enable the citizens of this community, the businesses of this community, and others who might supply us in this community to present to the commissioners, plural, of their concerns about council and their suggestions for reform and improvement. So I continue to say that's the way forward. Yes, that doesn't involve this council. It means we would be suspended for a period of 3 months, maybe more, but it would enable a line to be drawn in the sand, and a full reset of this council. People want to speak about this. The dissatisfaction, Mr. Mayor, I know you don't hear it, but I can tell you there is a huge amount of interest out there, and it's essentially dissatisfaction out there with how this council operates and this organisation. I have to say that the continual bullying keeps on taking place. I can't disclose the nature of this. I've had codes of conduct on me. Station Street was disclosed in this chamber 2 years ago. Another one a year ago, which didn't have a quorum. It was put up against me by 8 councillors and it failed to proceed. The Minister had to change the Act to get that dealt with by local government. But now I've received another code of conduct. Funny that, isn't it? Right at the 11th hour. I can't talk about what's in that code of conduct.
Councillor Scandrett, you cannot talk publicly about codes of conduct, whether
I'm
they're
not talking
on
about
you or not on you. You just keep breaching the code of conduct.
No, Mr. Mayor, it's a statement of fact, and when it comes back to council, at some point it will be talked about in council. So it's clearly the subject matter I can't talk about.
I have pointed out to you, you have...
Yes, I'm happy to suspend for a minute.
It is clear under the Code of Meeting Practice and not to mention Code of Conducts. You are correct, Mr. Mayor, under both the Code of Conduct and the Code of Meeting Practice. It's not to be mentioned in the public arena. I am correct.
I uphold your point of order. Thank you. Well done. Councillor Scandrett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I didn't disclose the nature of it. Anyway, my point is that this council continues to be dysfunctional with these sort of things going on in the background. I will continue to say that I think that the Minister should step in and hold a public inquiry.
Thank you, Councillor Scandrett. And I do not know what people do not understand. Councillor Turland is Exceedingly right. Exceedingly. We've been here for a number of years. We should know code of conduct procedure. Councillor Whipper.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm speaking against the amendment. Quite clearly, I think it's a little bit off task today. Our agenda talks quite clearly about why we feel that we should not have a suspension placed on us. I think this notice of motion spells out quite clearly what we're seeking is some procedural fairness to get the opportunity to put our case. One councillor suggests that this council needs a full shakeout and a full reset. That might be an election platform, I don't know. I'm more focused on what we can do in the time remaining with us, as I've done in the last 20 years, and other councillors likewise to serve this community. I don't think that the role of councillor is a plaything. I don't think it should be exploited in that way or be even perceived to be exploited in that way. It's serious business. We don't always please everybody, but then again, if we can please everybody, I don't think we're doing our job right, because I think we're moving away from our own values. It's easy to promise everything to everyone, but it's impossible to deliver. We know that, unless it's election time. But I think this way forward, Mr Mayor, let's put it to the Minister. All we're seeking is a fair go. I mean, this is a democracy. We're not asking for anything more than that. The Minister, quite clearly in her letter, points out that there is dysfunction, but it's only among some councillors. I reiterate that. That's what the Minister says quite clearly. I want to ask her why she would sacrifice a democratically elected council for the sake of, as she says, some councillors. Why? How? Where's the fairness of the justice in that? So I think this is a way forward. Then after putting that submission personally to the Minister, we just have to take her decision. But if there's any fairness in the process, she'll allow us that extra week to do that, and hopefully we'll move forward to represent this community and the diversity of this community as well, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Whipper. Are there any other speakers? Then I will sum up. Councillor McLaughlin.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I'll just quickly speak.
Anybody speaking against?
Yeah, I'm speaking against the recommendation. The amendment. The amendment. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor McLaughlin.
Look, I'll take issue with one of the points on that, and look, I think it's irrelevant, really, all these, bringing up issues to show, just some of the points that are made here to, I don't know, what the aim of it really is, to say to the Minister, oh, yes, this is why we should be suspended. Well, look, you have had to use your casting vote, Mr Mayor, on several occasions. And that has been an issue. It's Councillor Turlin's taken up today. It's one of the items he's put up there. Now, we were 9 councillors. We're down to 8. Due to illness, one of our councillors had to leave us. I think it's pretty unfair. You've got the opportunity always to use your casting vote. That's a democratic process. To take issue with that, I think, is incorrect. There's probably dozens of councils in New South Wales at the present that are on even numbers where the Mayor has to use his casting vote. Now, in the last few councils, it didn't happen very often, because hardly at all, because we were 9 councillors. So it's your right to use it, and I'm glad you have used it, because we've got to make the decisions, we've got to move forward, and that's what you've done. I think the Minister needs to discount that we are a council that can move forward, and to put these things up to say, I think what the option idea is, let's put our hand up and say, yes, let's be suspended for 3 months. Well, I don't agree with that, and I don't think the majority of the councillors sitting around here tonight agree with that. I don't know what it achieves. Is it an election ploy for some people? Maybe it is. And I think that's probably more correct. But I'll leave it at that, Mr Mayor. But I'm disappointed that we can't all support this council going forward and working together for this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McLaughlin. I'll sum up, and I'll just take that last point you made. My understanding, there is now 19 councils in New South Wales who have an even number of councillors. When I first was elected, along with Councillor Halstead, it was 12 councillors in Wingecarribee Shire. That stayed there until about 2005 or 6, and one of the worst decisions I made was bringing it back to 9. All that besides, and that is, at the moment, the Australian government is ruled by the chair. He has the casting vote. That's the Australian government. I've always said be careful what you wish for by bringing in suspension. We support it, whatever. That will mean an administrator, and administrators act totally differently to elected representatives and the functioning of a normal council. If there is an administrator appointed, which I hope there isn't, then the general manager will be appointed by the administrator. The budget will be set by the administrator. There will be no councillor who can officially represent the Shire at Anzac Day. There will be no councillor who can have any function other than the normal person in the street. You won't be able to ring up a manager and say, how are we going on this project, or can you give me a costing on that? Won't be able to do that. All the mobiles will be handed in, printers will be taken away, no laptops, you'll lose all that. You will lose your position in the community, and the community look to councillors to represent them. And to support the fact that you don't want a councillor, then I find that very disappointing, because I want to serve my term. I came to this council 26 years ago, and people say, oh, it was 26 years ago. Well, Councillor Halstead, he has done 38 years of government service and local government service. Larry Whipper, 20. Councillor McLaughlin, 13. So good on you. Don't take that dignity away from those who have given service. Acknowledge the fact that, yes, we need a wake-up call. Yes, let's take it on the chin from the minister, but let's ask that she meets with us and has the opportunity to hear what we have to say. And yes, if it happens, it happens, but we'll go down fighting. So I thank the councillors who have spoken. It's been one of the best council meetings we've had in probably 16 months, and I hope that can continue.
Just a correction up there, if I may, on my amendment.
No.
Item 2, where it says submit,
Sorry,
it's
sorry,
this, not it. This.
Councillor Turley.
It is not correct. The
The-
council submit this submission.
Councillor Turley, the motion up there is the motion that will be put.
It's the amendment. You've got the motion, my
Okay,
motion.
or
My
in the
amendment says
amendment.
it, not this submission. It is
In
clear
your amendment.
in my amendment, not yours,
Okay,
mine.
we will,
That's all
I will
want to
allow
know.
that, if that is a fair point.
Thank you. Does this mean there'll be no more councillor dinners as well?
Councillor Turland, I think that is totally irrelevant for something that has been a tradition for this council since 1984, since its amalgamation, and it is a good thing to have. Can I ask all those in favour of the amendment to please raise your hand?
I'm sorry, Mr Mayor, I can't see the whole amendment.
Okay,
Could we bring it to the top of the screen,
there's
please?
the amendment. All those in favour of the amendment, please raise your hand. Councillor Turland. All those against the amendment? Okay. We have Councillor, will Councillor Turland be recorded, voted the only vote for the amendment? And two councillors abstained. Councillor, now I'm up putting all in favour of the motion. Councillor Nelson, Councillor Andrews, Councillor Whipper, Councillor McLaughlin, Councillor Gare. It be noted that two councillors abstained, Councillor Halstead and Councillor Scandrett. I declare the motion.
Mr Mayor, you must take the vote against the motion.
I will put the motion. All those in favour of the motion, please raise your hand. Councillor Nelson, Councillor Andrews, Councillor Whipper, Councillor McLaughlin, Councillor Gare. Those against the motion? Councillor Scandrett, Councillor Turland. Councillor Halstead abstained. I declare the motion carried, and without any further business, as the business has been completed.
Mr Mayor, could I just ask something, and that is, when will you be sending your response to the Minister?
The response will be sent, I would imagine, Mr. Promptly. If
Promptly.
not today, early in the morning.
I imagine it means shortly. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Halstead.
Yes, I have something that I need to say, and it's with great regret in some respects, but I hereby tender my resignation from the Wingecarribee Shire Council effective immediately. I'll hand that to you shortly. Thank you.
Councillor Halstead, I accept it. You've obviously given a great deal of thought. I believe you have served the community, not just in here. You are OAM. You are 12 years, 13 years councillor, and 4 times mayor. You leave with the legacy that you can be extremely proud of. I think as you have tendered that, and as a matter of urgency, I would like council to acknowledge your resignation, and in acknowledging your resignation, move a vote of thanks and appropriately worded recognition, which I believe will be taken in what I've said from Ms Lidgard and will be ratified by council at the next meeting. So would somebody like to second that? Councillor Whipper seconded.
The light is on.
Yeah, I'll let councillors speak, but that is with great regret, and may you enjoy your retirement out of council with long nights of sleep without any concerns of the welfare of what is happening here. Enjoy yourself. Councillor Turl.
Councillor Halstead, I'd like to say you've been a fantastic mentor for me in the time that I've been with you as a councillor. Your experience and education is at the top of level of the administration process as a lecturer in the UTS on local government law and practice. As I said, as a mentor, I must thank you for all the times you've been here for me and providing information to councillors and the staff on your education. So all I can say is it's a sad day, but it's also a day that I think you are coming out on top. Thank you again for being a good friend, and I'm sure I'll be talking to you very shortly.
Thank you. Any other councillors wish to speak?
Yeah, thank you, Mr.
Councillor
Mayor.
McLaughlin
Yeah.
and Councillor Whipper.
Well, this comes as a bit of a surprise, but I can understand the feeling for Councillor Halstead to tender his resignation rather than see what is more than likely going to happen with this council, so I do understand that. Councillor Halstead was in this term the mayor for 2 years, first 2 years, and he played a very straight bat. He didn't play numbers. and he was a good mayor. And with regard to his service, I can only acknowledge that it's a lot of years, and I wish him well. I'm sorry it's got to happen under these circumstances, Councillor, because I think the community owes you a debt for your commitment to this community, and also your knowledge and understanding, both as an engineer and a planner, which does come in very handy as a councillor when you've got that sort of understanding. So I wish you all the best, councillor, in your time.
Thank you, Councillor McLaughlin, and there'll be no more quick questions, Mr Mayor. Councillor Whipper.
So I'd just like to, again, this has come as a shock, to wish Councillor Halstead all the best and thank him for all those years, not only as an elected representative, but as a staff member of this council, and putting, I think, some really significant things in place in terms of planning as well. Our E3 zones is one that comes to mind, but his knowledge, his length and breadth and depth of knowledge of the Local Government Act has been an asset for the whole council. I've served under a few mayors, and it was always a pleasure to serve under Ken as mayor, and he was shown that respect, and I believe the position of mayor is one that it does deserve acknowledgement in spite of personalities. Ken says it like it is, like he thinks it is, and I admire that. I think we have to stand on our digs sometimes, and if we're being mentored, if we've learned anything from Ken, it's that we need to do that. We need to dig our heels in and fight for what we believe in. I think it's critically important. Put politics aside, put personalities aside. Ken's always shown that he's prepared to roll his sleeves up and fight, and that's something that I think we should take into the battlefield with us, and I thank Ken for everything he's done. And we'll still remain friends, obviously. We don't have to sit with this barrier between us. But yeah, so thanks, Ken. All the best, mate. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, it has come as a bit of a shock right at the end of this meeting, Councillor. You said you had some surprises earlier on. I didn't know it was going to be that one, but a distinguished service that you've provided. You've served this council as mayor on a couple of occasions. I've had to work as an employee when you were mayor, and I worked as a councillor with you when you were mayor. You received an award for your engineering ability earlier on. I just can't recall exactly what it is, but it was for your service to engineering generally, having worked here as an engineer and a planner and then becoming a councillor. It's certainly a distinguished career. So you're going out on a high, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you very much, Councillor, as well as Councillor Scandron.
Thank you, Mr Mayor and Councillor Halstead. We've worked together many years here, and I served as your deputy, and I'd like to thank you for your service. Thank you.
Councillor Andrews.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Wow, Councillor Halstead, Ken, we go back a long way apart from not too long in local government, 4 years, but we go back a long, long way back to Mittagong and sport, my involvement with sport and Ken's involvement with sport. We've known each other for probably 35 years. I'll certainly speak to him after this, but I wish him well and congratulate him on his career today. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm going to close the meeting before he says I want to come back. All right, thank you everyone for attending. Thank you for your observing the rules that were being put in place. I declare the meeting closed.